Welcome to Headbands and Handkerchiefs, where buying banter meets no BS reality. Get ready to dive into the world of buying and selling businesses without the fluff and fancy jargon. We cut through the BS to bring you raw, unfiltered insights from industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs, and no-holds-barred discussions that get straight to the point. Whether you're a seasoned business buying pro or a curious aspiring entrepreneur, this is where the real talk happens. Buckle up for headbands and handkerchiefs, because in business, there's no room for sugarcoating. Let's get down to the brass tacks.
No room for sugar coating. I like that. Isn't that right, Richard?
Amen to that. I love it.
You don't sugarcoat anything, do you?
Oh, I've never been accused of that. That's for sure. No, never.
Oh, welcome everybody.
Maybe I should start trying. Yeah.
Yes. Welcome everyone to Headbands and Handkerchiefs. If you are with us, give us a shout in the chat. We'd love to know that you're joining us. We're here every Thursday on all of your favorite streaming platforms, live with my dear friend Richard Parker, who's been in this industry, 30 years?
30. Yeah, it's coming up February 1st. It'll be 34 years.
That's it.
Jeez, I don't know what happened.
Yeah. And I myself, I've been in small business lending at least 20 of my 30 years, and business acquisition lending for sure the last 5 to 10, focus because it's a transaction I love. And hello, Jody Lamb. Good to see you in the chat. See us here in the house. Thank you. Miles Woodbury saying hi. Richard Parker, you're called the man.
That's Miles, who I was referring to last week, my adopted son, Miles. So he's joined us this week, and he's a budding entrepreneur. So I'm thrilled you're here, Miles.
I love it. And Lola Gold, thank you. Thank you, everyone that's coming in. And we're going to get started right away on topic because we don't dilly-dally. We don't have time. These transactions do not have time for dilly-dally. And today we want to talk about, we called it the Business Buying Safari, oh my. And we think of Wizard of Oz, lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. But what were you saying earlier, Richard?
Buyers and brokers and lenders, oh my.
There you go. Buyers and brokers and lenders, oh my. Yeah, that's a big oh my. And we got to get them all to work together. So Business Safari, we're going to give all of you that are listening in ideas on where do you go to find these business listings, right?
Yep.
But before you search, ladies and gentlemen, before you search for a business, please speak to a professional like Richard or I, or someone that knows how are you qualified, right? And maybe you can talk about that a little more, Richard. What makes you qualified?
There's qualified. There's two veins to that, right? So there's being qualified financially to be able to finance the deal. So it's qualified with a lender or lenders or whatever that may be. And then there's the whole qualification process related to what do you qualify for skill-wise for the type of business that you should be buying. And they're two very distinct disciplines, but they're equally important. And if you start off this process without qualifying for both, and we say qualifying, meaning you know what the lending process is all about, what you will be able to qualify for financially, and equally important, if you don't know what type of business is right for you, this is where people get off the track. They go off the reservation. They make terrible mistakes because they start this process by jumping into the deep end full blast without knowledge, without knowing financially what they're able to afford, what type of business is right for them. And that's, by and large, a big reason why 90% of the people who begin the search to buy a business never complete a transaction.
Amen to that. And what you just explained makes me think of fishing with my dad in my younger days. If you put a big chunk of bait on a hook and you dump it at a lake with a school of fish, they're all coming at you. They're all going to come at you. But what is the right business that's a fit for you? we're here to change the narrative norm, Richard. We want to mentor individuals that want to buy these businesses to do it smarter and start with the people that know how to qualify you, because there's a lot of questions that the buyer that I need to ask them to make sure that they're going to pass the SBA muster, as you call it.
Right.
You
Right.
know, there's a lot of background checks plus the bank guidelines. You know, you may have cash to put down, but what do you have left behind? And not one transaction is the same as the other. We know that's for sure, right?
Yeah, and I just went in. I just had an example today with someone who's looking to buy a business. They were going through their projections for the future, and they asked me to give them a second set of eyes on it, and they had it. The timing has just happened to turn out, but this is usually not the case. Typically, this conversation. Let's assume this conversation took place in June. Well, they give me a pro forma that goes July through December, and I said, okay, well, that's great. What happens if you buy the business in June? Right? You're looking at it now, but if you buy in June, he said, well, what's the difference? Well, here's the difference. If that business has high season or low season, anything other than 12 months a year of stability, if they have high season or low season in that, you're buying it in June, and from June to November happens to be their low season or their high season, you have working capital requirements.
Yeah.
If not enough sales are coming in, you have to fund it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's
Mm-hmm.
in, even though revenue is coming in, you may still have to fund purchase of certain inventory. So it's not just like you have X amount of dollars, you put it down in the business, you complete the transaction. You have to think about what happens after the day you take over. Because if you don't think about it, you'll be out of business before you've really been in business.
Yeah. I like how you brought up the seasonal businesses, because they can be financed, and underwriters understand there will be downtimes in the year. But what is a good mitigant to that? And it depends upon the buyer, but a good mitigant might be you're married and you have secondary spousal income to kind of help support, the personal expenses during that slow season, and or have sufficient working capital where when you're working with quality lenders, they're going to know if you need that working capital to support payroll and pay the short-term operating expenses during the downtime, right?
Right.
So not every buyer might be a fit for a seasonal business, but there are plenty of buyers out there that are.
Right, of course. And you also have a situation where quite often the business declines after a new owner takes over. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just inevitable. They're
Uh-huh.
just getting used to things for whatever reason, and you want to be conservative when you do your forecast. And this, I always tell people do a 5 to 25% decline for the first 3 to 6 months, because
Yeah.
very often they do decline. You're just getting your footing, and so it is entirely possible some clients may leave, but the business is just getting underway again under you as the owner, and so
Yeah.
you have to account for that there may be a temporary decline in the business, and so when you couple that with the seasonality,
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure that your working capital is in place, because the old, like my mother used to tell me, save money for a rainy day. The
Yeah,
rainy day could be the first day you open the business.
that's right. And I would like to add to that working capital piece, Richard, for our listeners. Every bank has their own in-house credit policy when it comes to business acquisition finance transactions. Some banks recognize the value of working capital. So therefore, they will include up to 3 months of the post closing transaction of short-term operating expenses. They'll give you, the buyer, that cash right into your new business checking account. And then other banks on top of that will give you a revolving line of credit. But now let me spin the bottle a little bit further. There are other banks out there that say, no, Richard, you want to buy a business? You come up with the working capital in your personal savings. So here we go again, just like we talked last week. Every bank has their own idea on how they're going to approve this business acquisition loan for you, the buyer. So the question is, are you really working with the right bank that's going to set you up with the best loan structure to make sure you're successful from day one, right?
Yeah, and part of the issue is most people who acquire a business outside large transactions are first-time buyers, so they don't even really think about this. And who can blame them? They don't have the experience of buying businesses, and so these type of issues that surface are things that are just foreign to them. And so, if you're not working with the right people, right resources, in other words, if you don't have the right team surrounding you,
yes,
it's highly possible that something significant gets overlooked, not because of negligence, but simply by lack of experience or knowledge.
that's right. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up too. And the same is applicable in every industry, but experience and knowledge. I mean, we're talking 30 years with you, Richard, 20 years with me. We walked through the fire on several transactions. These days, SBA lenders, listen, we're getting older. We're Gen Xers. There are baby boomers. They're exiting. Not everybody.
Baby boomers,
Yeah.
baby boomer. Yeah.
Not everybody wants to be an SBA lender, and not everybody wants to be a business broker. So the ones that are, they're younger, but the experience isn't there. So that's really important. All right. Well, let's circle back to the topic of the hour here. Where do we go to find these business listings? And everybody just assumes right away to go straight to the broker websites, right? So the question is, speaking of experience, Richard, we have really, really decent brokers that know how to vet the sellers and know how to make sure they're ready to be listed on the market. But then we also know there is a plethora of inexperienced brokers that are just hungry because they're 100% commission based. They just will take anything and slap it on the market. Maybe you can expand a little further on that for our audience. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, how do you look at a business broker online listing summary and determine what's what?
Okay, well, I put together a couple of stats in anticipation of the conversation, so to make people aware, and if anything is said disparagingly about business brokers, I do that. So I'm in the same world, and so we're just pointing out facts about what exists in the real world that buyers are going to encounter. If you take a look at the first step that most buyers have is they jump in and they go to this, the business for sale websites, the online databases of business for sale websites, and the stats with those particular websites is they're typically controlled by business brokers. You have some for sale by owner, you have some franchise in there, but by and large, they're controlled by business owners, by business brokers. Now, business brokers only sell around 10% of the businesses that transact in the United States, yet they control 90% of the listings on there, right?
Can you say that one more time? Because when you told me that earlier, I did not realize that statistic. Only 10%? Say that again.
Business brokers only transact about 10% of the businesses that are sold in the United States on an annual basis. Now, the numbers may have changed somewhat a little bit, so they're 12 or 14%, but that's really the number. So you have that number combined with the fact that the majority of businesses listed for sale on the public business for sale websites are, for the most part, all business broker listings, or there's some for sale by owners or some franchises, but by and large, right? So you're starting out with the concept that the vast majority of businesses that are available for sale are not visible. You're not seeing them. You're on the business for sale website. You're not seeing them. Now, statistically, and these are numbers that are given to me at the highest level from the business brokerage community, that typically of all the listings of business brokers, and I get it. I've done it at the low end. You have to have, it's a listing business because you've got to get a lot of listings because not all of them are going to sell, and you're on commission. So I get all of that. Yeah. However, the numbers typically fall out that only about 25% of their listings sell. Some companies do better. There's a large brokerage, national, international brokers. They sell about 33% of their listings. So the majority of listings don't sell. Mm-hmm. So let's take a fact that on these business for sale websites, the vast majority of businesses listed there are not going to sell. Probably 75% of those won't sell, and they're only representing a small amount of what's available for sale. And so when a buyer starts out and they're looking at these business for sale websites, their sample is not good.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, don't get me wrong, it's a terrific place to start in one particular with one particular idea in mind. Most people have no idea what type of business is right for them.
Mhm.
And so if they want to do this as a weeding out process, it's a very good place to be your laboratory, because you could pick out 3 or 4 categories, pick out 3 or 4 sellers within each category, meet with those sellers of those type of industries, have a good back and forth questions with the seller, learn more about the business, do your research after, and then determine, well, of those, those 4 categories, 3 for sure I'm not interested in. So 1 may be interesting, or you rinse and repeat and you pick out 3 and 4 more. But if you pick out 4 categories, speak with 5 sellers, you then have a sample or a laboratory of 20 businesses that you can have a conversation with. So it's, from that perspective, it's really terrific, right?
Mhm.
But also have to understand, you may not find your business there, so you have to go beyond that.
Yeah, right on, right on. And out of the all of the businesses that are for sale, since the brokers list you say 10%, we all know, if it's still true today, that 80% of that 10% probably won't get bank financing. Would that be accurate?
Oh,
Yeah.
I would believe so. I know when I used to do lower market brokerage a number of years ago, the 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 percentage of deals that got financed was 6%.
Wow. Wow.
Now, I don't know what that number is now. You're in a much better position than I would be to say what percentage of all the transactions get financed. But it used to be 94% were a combination of cash and or seller financing.
Mhm.
I'm sure that number's changed and gotten better over the years, just because the criteria has loosened up a little bit, and people have become more comfortable with that. Further, as interest rates, they've risen, in the last year or so. But we
Yeah.
had this window of 10 years where we had some really low interest rates, so that would more incentivize people to look for third party leverage.
Right on. So, would it be fair to say, I know where I stand on my thought on this. Um, are business buyers wasting too much time for 2 reasons? Number 1, they don't know, pardon my French, what the hell they qualify for.
Right.
Right? Or right? I think that's a
Fair
biggie.
enough.
They're just
Fair enough.
and my business broker friends out there, and yours too, would say bingo, and they're tired of the phone calls and they don't want to take all the phone calls, because probably 90% of the phone calls in a day are people that don't even qualify to buy a business, and they're wasting their time. So, number 1, we're not qualified. Number 2, if 80% of the 10% of the businesses on the market are represented by brokers and they don't qualify, we're wasting too much time. Right, Richard?
They're wasting too much time in a lot of ways, right? So certainly in the example that you cite, Deb, I mean, that's spot on. You also have this scenario where the majority of people, because the statistics in this business are really abysmal, right? The amount of people that qualify, the numbers that don't get to the finish line, the percentage of businesses that are listed for sale that don't sell. I mean, there's one horrible statistic after another. I mean, we're very lucky in our business. We have almost a 180-degree opposite within the amount of people who use our materials and buy businesses, but I'm not here to sell programs. I want to talk about, how these people go down the road incorrectly. And it's
Mhm.
very easy to teach and preach education and knowledge, but it's a perfect example where the data backs up the theory or the thesis that you have these ridiculous amounts of people entering the market. When I say entering the market to buy a business, that fail.
Mhm.
And so there's a reason why. And if you would do a Venn diagram between not qualifying for lending, not knowing the skill, what business is right for them, too many garbage businesses for sale, disinformation on the website. If you did a Venn diagram, the hub of that would be a lack of knowledge. I mean, it's a very generic statement to say, but it's so true, because it's too easy for someone who wants to buy a business to jump in, start looking at business for sale websites,
Mhm.
contacting brokers and sellers. They're not right for the business. They don't qualify financially. They think they're going to buy businesses at no money down. They think they're going to buy Microsoft, like Microsoft for no money down.
Yeah.
They, they're they have no uh, prior experience. They've gotten misinformation, and so they're on the wrong road immediately, heading in the wrong direction. right?
Yeah.
And there used to be this quote, what's the use of running if you're running down the wrong road? And so with every component of this, it's got to take a step back. Sure, there's some things that you start to pioneer and have to learn as you go, like the
Mhm.
example that I gave with looking at different types of businesses to try to help weed out the ones that are wrong for you and get to the point of which ones that are right. But you got to take a step back. If you're going to do this, if you're serious about buying a business, the first thing you got to do is take a step back and say, I got to get knowledge, right? I got to
Yes.
get good knowledge, not just information, good knowledge. And
Mhm.
that is related to how this works related to lenders, how it works related to valuation, how it works related to what type of business is right for me, how I go about the process, how do I
Mhm.
negotiate the valuations, the due diligence, all those components. If you don't do it that way, well, there's chances are you're going to become another one of those 90%ers that never buy a business. And it's
Mhm.
not because you don't want to, it's not because you're not capable, it's just because you haven't equipped yourself with the right information and surrounded yourself with the right people. I mean, the
That's
failure rates, they back up, it's very simple why all these people fail. And that's my belief is the hub or the reasoning is they just don't educate themselves properly right from the get-go.
right, right. And I believe where they're starting, if they're going right to a business broker that's selling the business or businesses, and that business broker is inexperienced, we got basically inexperience and a broker and an inexperienced buyer, and we're heading down disaster. And then what happens? They just blame it on everyone else.
Yeah, of course. And I understand, from business brokers get besieged with inquiries. It's hard
Mhm.
for them to vet all of them. You know, I've had examples when I've spoken with people and they tell me, I've been looking for 6 months and they finally, found their website and or did or did not buy a program. That it's immaterial. And they said they keep sending broker inquiries. Now, not all of them are perfect and plenty of them don't answer their emails, but
Mhm.
one of them was I'm sending out all these inquiries and I can't get an answer. And they were using one of the websites that might have been Biz Buy Sell or whatever. I said, well, tell me what your email looks like. You find a business, you
Oh.
think you know what you're, tell me what your business. And I said, give me a sample of, he said, well, I told him, I want um, to get 3 years of tax returns. And that, I said, well, that's your opening shot. Like you're contacting the seller, the broker and say, please send me 3 years of tax returns. Like there's nobody in the right mind going to send you that. The inquiry has to be, I'm serious about buying a business. I need to buy a business. I'm serious about buying a business. I have the resources to close a transaction as long as you do. I
Mhm.
understand that there's some documentation like a non-disclosure or whatever that I have to execute. Please send me whatever you need so we can start the conversation. You're not asking for tax returns. Sometimes you don't even get that till due diligence. So even if these people who know what type of business that may be right for them, the lack of knowledge and experience, they don't even ask the right questions from the beginning. So if you're a business broker and someone sends you an inquiry and says, send me the tax return, I mean, chances are you don't even respond to that email. And who could blame them?
Right. And that's why I'm trying to change the narrative norm now that I'm outside of corporate America and outside of the banks as the direct bank lender. Now after the 20 years of doing this, I help the business buyers prepare. And what are your goals? Where do you want to be? What kind of cash you're going to have available today? What will be left over after the transaction? What's your background? What's your criminal background? My gosh, there are so many things
Yeah,
that
right.
need
Right.
so many things that need to be vetted before there's even that contact with the broker. So what I am doing now is fully vetting business buyers as if I'm the underwriter, asking these questions. And let me tell you, I'm pretty hard on my clients saying you better be truthful, because if you're not, the skeleton will come out of the closet and your deal will go backwards. But when I fully vet them and see what they all have for cash on hand, if they have any equity in their home, if they have any kind of secondary household income. I look at the whole picture. Now I know this is what you qualify for. And based on your resume, these are the industries that an underwriter would be comfortable for you to take over. Can we juke and jive a little bit? Well, sure, but it's a start. And if I give that buyer, Richard, a fully vetted SBA pre-qualification letter as a buyer, and they call the broker and say, listen, I've been vetted. Here's my proof of funds as a business buyer and a personal guarantor to the loan to buy this business. have me sign an NDA and let's start talking about the tax returns, because that's the proof in the pudding that's going to make the SBA loan project payment. And, I think we need to expedite both ends in a better way than what we have over the last 20 to 30 years. There's too much frustration because we're dancing around stuff that we don't know is true on both sides of the transaction.
Well,
So,
and there's no standardized process, right? So,
yeah.
I saw something recently which mirrored what I've been talking about here, and I called it business brokerage, not business brokerage. And I don't want to sit here and harp on the business brokers being the focal point of the
Right.
problems within the industry, because everybody's at fault.
Correct.
And when a buyer, it's similar to if you're looking for a house. Well, it's great to start out and you want to go look at these fancy estates, and it's fun for the open houses and see how the rich people live in their $5 and $10 million houses. But the reality is, if you can afford to buy a $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 house or less, whatever the case may be, you got to get qualified from the bank to know what you're able to shop for at the beginning. So going to look for businesses that are way out of your range. I mean, if that's how you get your jollies, good luck to you. Maybe you'll learn something, but you're not going to be able to execute that and get to the finish line. And so qualifying from a financial standpoint and having that document in place certainly raises you above a lot of the buyers. And keeping in mind that regardless of how a business is listed or not publicly listed for sale,
Mm-hmm.
if sellers or brokers or anyone have any types of inquiries related to prospective business buyers, they're bombarded. And it's
They are.
good buyers stand out. And how do good buyers stand out? Number one, they demonstrate that they have a need to buy a business. Most people want to buy a business, but there's a difference between wanting to buy and needing to buy, whether it be to generate an income, replace an income, or because you want to be an entrepreneur. So if you're able to demonstrate that you need to buy a business, that you're able to disclose your personal financial statement, which is a whole other thing, because some buyers I don't want to give my personal financial statement and say, wait a minute, time out. You're asking for their financials. Yes, you've signed an NDA. So reciprocally, they can ask for your financial statement. So if you have a need to buy, you demonstrate you're serious, you demonstrate you're educated, you have the right team around you, you're financially qualified, versus someone else who comes in who's just flying by the seat of their pants, sending in inquiries like, send me your tax return. Well, who the hell do you think is going to get the answer from a broker or a seller? Of course, the individual who looks to be more prepared for the process. And so all you're doing is yourself a favor, because this isn't difficult, but it's complicated. And there's a lot of stages to it. And
There
people need
is.
to understand, and finding a business for sale goes well beyond business brokers. And even when you do find it, that's when the work really begins. And so not coming across or not being prepared, not only coming across and being presented as a qualified buyer for all these reasons, but knowing that you have the acumen. You may not know everything. That's why you bring in professionals, but you have a good understanding of this process and knowledge. If you have that in place, your chances of being a 10%er versus a 90%er increase exponentially in all facets.
Yeah. I think of fully vetted proof of funds letter that the buyers present to the brokers. I look at that like a speed pass at an amusement park to get to the front of the line.
Yeah, right. Good analogy.
It's true. It is, right? It's a speed pass. And but let's make sure whoever's doing the vetting, similar to SBA qualified listings, let's make sure whoever's vetting those are credible and experienced enough.
Correct.
Because we talked about that last week. We can see a lot of listings that just say SBA qualified, and they're not, perhaps because the SBA lender that handed it out was inexperienced, and they're just trying to drum up business because their boss is all over them for loan production. I lived in that world.
Right. Of course. Yeah, that's part of the problem, but it's you could certainly navigate it, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I'm looking at my cheat sheet here because we talked about finding these businesses that brokers list online. And would you agree that a lot of the websites like bizbuysell.com, businessesforsale.com, bizquest.com are a compilation of those broker listings, and maybe just sellers trying to sell on their own?
Yes, exactly. So you have those ones, and BizQuest is owned by Biz Buy Sell. So you're going to see a lot of the businesses listed on both. Businessesforsale.com. They're good resources, generally speaking. But yes, those as mentioned earlier, for the most part, they're controlled by business broker listings, some fit for sale by owners, some franchises. And they are a good laboratory, as we alluded to after, to get you, get the marbles out of your mouth, try to narrow down the scope a little bit of what type of business is right for you. But very often what happens is those markets help you get to what type of business may make sense for you or believe based on your skill set. And then you have to expand your search, whether that be direct search, direct solicitations. Because I'm of the belief, I'm doing this 34 years. I bought 13 companies, one co-investment. I'm of the belief that every business is for sale. Some owners just don't know it yet. And so sometimes, not sometimes, often you have to go beyond those databases and do either direct solicitations, get the word out to accountants and attorneys and the Chamber of Commerce and everybody and your brother-in-law and whoever cuts your dog's hair, get the word out that you're looking to buy a business, because very often that the search process goes way beyond the publicly listed businesses for sale. Plus, using those listings for sale as your general laboratory is effective. Plus, speaking with brokers who are generally recognize you as a qualified buyer, oftentimes some of their listings don't even get to those websites. They have some real good businesses. They have a pool or a stable of buyers. Excuse me. They know that this a good business, solid books, solid financials, no major problems, can transition well to a lot of buyers. They'll put it out to their stable of buyers, or, that they've already recognized as being serious individuals, and it may not even see those databases. And so this hunt is like this has got to be a shotgun. This is not a laser beam. This is a shotgun. You have the business for sale websites, direct solicitations, which we can cover off at some point, direct solicitations, getting the word out to everybody. Your search for a business must go way beyond the publicly listed businesses for sale websites for all of the reasons we just talked about. Garbage businesses, not many sold, controlled by a few, not representative of what's really out there for sale. So it's a good starting point, but you got to go way beyond that.
Or you're going to pull your hair out looking
or
at
you're going to fail. Right. After a certain amount of time, you say, shit, I'm going in circles here. It's time to get my resume out, because I'm not going to be able to buy a business, which is unfortunate, because you do it if you do it in a practical, knowledgeable way, this is doable by anybody.
That's right. I want listeners to think too, if they're aspiring to buy a business one day, if you're working for a smaller company, a lot of the transactions I have funded over the years were the buyer was the key employee working for the HVAC company.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And it's beautiful. And I have seen banks will approve established key employees that have been working for the business that's now selling, finance 100% of the deal. Why?
They know the business.
Sweat equity. Right.
And there's no learning curve for them. I mean, they may need to learn some of the administrative pieces, but yes. And it's, for business buyers should really think about that type of idea, whether or not, if they want to stay in that industry or not. But oftentimes the business to be purchased is staring them right in the face.
Yes. Yeah. And how about the competition? A lot of times you're a business owner and you're like, gosh, I want to grow. It's your competition. You make friends with your competitors. I've done a lot of those.
Yeah. I mean, competition or ancillary businesses, if you're in, you see this a lot up north where people are in, commercial landscaping. Well, that's great in the summertime, but you need to do snow removal or that type of thing in the wintertime, adding in those type of businesses, or ancillary services where you can add various products and services to your own suite of services or products, sell them to the same clients, growing through competition. It is much easier to grow through acquisition than it is through organic growth. And very often small business owners, and regardless of the size, I mean, we could reduce this to almost to the absurd. If someone, it's real small business, if someone owns a dry cleaners in a plaza in a small town, well, buy another dry cleaners or buy a shoe repair place.
Yeah. Right.
Or buy, another alteration place, or, those type of things. So the growth through acquisition is a real viable growth opportunity for existing business owners. And to your point, sometimes the financing can be incredible.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are a ton of places online too. I mean, there's online directories. You can pull NAICS codes. You can get business names and numbers easily today. And as with every industry, there are people and companies out there that will charge you to do searches when a lot of it can just be done for free online. So be careful where you click the mouse to
Yeah.
purchase something, because sometimes it's free. It's just a fabricated tool that somebody created.
And it's worth the price you paid, right? I mean,
Yeah. But how about local chambers talking, to anybody, sometimes small business owners will mention, hey, I want to sell, I'm looking to retire. It's just that networking. Think of LinkedIn, Richard. If you want to buy a business, there's no better place to look than LinkedIn, and you can announce it. Hey, I'm looking to buy this type of company with this much cash flow or this industry, and why not? And you can do searches even on LinkedIn for business owners in industry specific and state specific. I mean, LinkedIn itself is a wonderful little engine that you can really niche down and find business owners in the industry and market that you're interested to possibly acquire. Boom. I mean,
right, right. And deal flow is difficult at all levels, right? That's the bee in the bonnet for everybody involved in this world.
mhm.
Whether you're looking to buy a small little business generating $50,000 in revenue, or you're looking to buy a $5 billion company as a private equity firm, deal flow is always the challenge. It's everybody's challenge. It's the challenge of business brokers to get listings. Everybody suffers from the same thing. There's no silver bullet. There's no one way that works. There's no lead generation tool that on its own works, flawlessly, or has been
Yeah.
proven to work, exclusively as a vehicle to get listings. So the answer lies in, you got to do everything.
Yes.
You got to do everything. Speak with
Mhm.
brokers, speak to bankers, speak to accountants, speak to attorneys, speak to the Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
speak to business owners, speak to your brother-in-law, speak to the people that service your house, the people that may come to be doing work at your home.
Mhm.
Anybody and everybody, every business that you walk into where there's a
Yeah.
manager or an owner in place, you get the word out. Now, some buyers might be worried, say, well, I work for a company, I can't be that vocal about it. They don't know that I'm leaving or whatever. So then you have to be cautious. But for
True.
someone who is in the hunt and is serious, or maybe doing this full time full
Mhm.
time rather than under the radar, from their company, you got to speak to everybody. That's
Right.
how you get potential leads. I mean,
That's
that's where
right.
they come from. If you were to ask me what's the best lead source to generate deal flow, the answer is simple: everything, and none of them. Right?
Right? It
Just
is.
talk with everybody.
But I think of exit planners. I know a lot of exit planners, and I love business exit planners because they see the value in how to prepare the business for the planned exit or the unexpected exit. I can
Right.
think back to my younger days as a commercial portfolio manager, walking into businesses and asking them, what is your succession plan, exit plan? It was always, I ain't gonna worry about that till I'm ready. Okay,
Yeah.
you
Right.
you don't know when ready is. Only
Yeah.
the man upstairs knows when you're ready is that you're going to exit. Okay,
That's right.
So get your act together and start doing what the professionals tell you, the small business owner, you need to do to get ready to sell. So kudos to all the business advisors and exit planners out there today, and the good brokers, because there are some damn good business brokers
Yes.
out there that speak truth. Truth hurts, but you know what?
But it
Truth
only hurts for a second.
hurts, but it makes you grow.
Of
And
course.
if you're going to grow to get more value and a higher dollar for your business when the time comes to exit, take the hurt, take the truth, shape up, people. Let's go. There are so many freaking business buyers out there today that are eligible, that have money, that have experience. They are ready to buy. But part of the issue is our supply is weak as far as eligible businesses.
Well, good
And
businesses, there's so
yeah.
much garbage. There's so much garbage, and businesses. If you run your business like you have to sell it, and this could be a whole show by itself. But putting things into place, making sure your books and records are in good shape, make sure there's no overarching massive problems for the business. What, I always ask sellers, what keeps you up at night about the business? Or if there's customer concentration, keeping in mind that any problem with the business that the seller recognizes, for example, customer concentration or difficulty recruiting employees, any problem that the seller, the owner, recognizes as a problem within their business, that's going to be magnified to the power of 10 in the eyes of the buyer, because the buyer has no experience with that business. So if it's a problem in your business, you could rest assured it's a big problem for a buyer. And so getting those taken care of is important. And you want to improve the buyer pool and expand the buyer pool. So the more people that could potentially buy the business, the more value you're going to get for the business. There's a bidding process. I mean, that's just math. That's just math. So when you talk about the exit planners and what they do, these are things that often a seller should be doing, a business owner, never mind a seller, long before you become a seller, should be doing it on your own. From day one, you run your business like you have to sell it, and it forces you to have good processes and procedures in place and systems, and your financials are in good order. Because not only is it going to make it more valuable when the time comes to sell, your business is going to do better. It's going to make it into a better business immediately, because you're going to have a better handle on the financials. The big issues that you have or problems are going to get mitigated. It's going to force you to run your business in a better way. So it not only does it pay dividends down the road, as you're the owner, even if you're 3, 5, 10, or eternity away from thinking that you want to sell your business, if you put it in that context of running it like you have to sell it, everything is going to be better.
That's right. And part of the process with SBA lending with the banks, as the business buyer, you put together a business plan, and you will not pass my gates of submission until you have in your business plan your succession plan.
It sounds pretty tough. The Deb Curtis gates of submission.
Listen, I'm sniffing that stuff, and I learned the hard way. I had underwriters say, "Deb, what the heck? There's no exit plan or succession plan in here." So you don't want to tick off an underwriter. So I've learned through the decades. So buyers, when they put their business plan together, I better see a succession plan in there. What happens if, Richard, you get hit by a bus and you just bought the business a week ago? Who's going to take over the business? You have to know who that is already, even before you even are in the business or overseeing the business. So
these things, because they happen, these things happen. It's reality.
Yeah.
I know we have, I'm not sure what we're doing time-wise, because I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see shit. But maybe you have a couple of questions if you want to maybe address those, because I know we have lots of people and some good questions, I believe.
Yes, I want to thank everybody that's been here so far.
I gravitated to the one that I see here, and sorry to be looking off to the side. I'm not checking my phone or whatever, but this is where the chat comes up on the side where someone says, I just noticed the title, can I ask an edgy question? So I like edgy questions. Are there additional, or edgy people, are there additional challenges for minorities or a business that is oriented to serving the minority market? Great question. You want to take a stab at it?
Well, yes. I mean, for me, and we talked a bit about this on last week's episode, is if you're buying a business that's 100% women owned or veteran owned or minority owned, as the buyer, are you the match for that owner today? And why I say that is because certain businesses have contracts with bigger guys for vendors to support the minority owned businesses, or the customers only want to work with a minority owned business. Right. And if you're not that matching minority and you don't know about that, you need to know about that. Pay attention, right? So that would be my ad. What would you add to it, Richard?
Well, I think it's very important, because some businesses, they may not transition. There could be government breaks and tax breaks associated with, some of the categories that you identified: minorities, veterans, women-owned businesses. There's one I'm working with right now, which is a similar situation, in order to get their ongoing benefits, and they have certain contracts that have been put into place as a result of them being a minority-owned business. So those are what you really need to look for from a legal standpoint. But I think Deb's point, even if none of those legal standpoint or points exist as far as getting favorable tax treatment or favorable contracts or vendors, I think the point that's really important is that business may thrive and survive because who's the face of the business?
Yeah.
And if the customers are dealing with a minority because you're in a community that caters to that particular minority, suddenly if you're not of that minority to come into the business, you stick out and they may not want to deal with you. And it's not discrimination, it's not racism, it's just culture. And
Yeah.
so understand that you may not be the right person to operate that business in the eyes of the customers or the employees.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, that was a great question, and something that every buyer and seller needs to pay attention to. Transparency on the seller side, what's underneath it all that a buyer needs to know, and vice versa. Yeah.
And there was one question regarding if there are any particular, I think I saw earlier, Sia. And Sia is working in the background. She's very quiet today because we usually have all these great noises and sound effects. I shouldn't say noises, sound effects to add to the equation. But she's doing a stellar job of, I see, posting questions. And there was one, Sia, that someone
She's
brought up related to
she's got it
sectors,
up
I think.
right there. It's up. Are there specific industries or markets that tend to sell better than others? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there are. Go
Mhm.
ahead. You go ahead, because I've got some comments too, but please go
Yes.
ahead, Deb.
For me, being the bank lender that knows all of my bank underwriters and decision makers, essential needs is the winner industry. And when I say essential needs, what do we need as humans to keep living? But we also have to pay attention to as well, are there threats like AI threats in some of the essential needs businesses? But I think of landscaping, healthcare, HVAC. We need air conditioning. We need our cars repaired. We need, what are the things that we need as humans to keep on living? Those are essential needs businesses, and they do well. Now people could say e-commerce does well, which yes, it does, and they're very profitable, but the underwriter is going to dig really hard to understand, is there any kind of big Amazon takeover of this little e-commerce business that could happen?
Right,
What are the big dogs going to do? So
right.
I'll just yield the mic and let you respond now.
Well, I think, from essential services, clearly from a lender standpoint, there's a love of that. They also like some franchises, but and that also ports over to markets that tend to sell better than others. If there wasn't a third party lender, essential services are always attractive for people because individuals know, for the most part, you don't go through these wild swings as the economy goes up and down.
Yeah.
But from the type of markets that tend to sell better than others, if you're carving out, the lending piece, which is very important, and I don't want to discount it, the businesses that are poised to sell are good businesses across markets and across industries, managed well, above and beyond everything else. They're going to transition to the greatest number of people. They're not overly complicated. Individuals that have general business acumen can take them over and run them successfully. And certainly, the ones that essential services become attractive also to the buyers because they know that that's not going to disappear. So the bland, boring, unsexy businesses, not complicated, that are easy to run
Yeah.
and are run well at this point with good books and records. I mean, those businesses, regardless of the economy, good businesses, which under that term, are the ones with good books and records, no major issues, and have a large buyer pool. Those businesses sell fast. There's
They
always a
do.
market for them.
And I would add too, the absentee owned. You touched on this earlier. Don't be the business owner working in the business and now you want to sell it, because when you sell, you are the business and you're leaving.
Yep.
That's right. The
Yep.
good businesses that are truly absentee owned, and a chief of credit of mine used to always say, as long as there's cash flow, that's a good business.
That's pretty basic, but pretty accurate.
Yep.
All
Consistent
right,
cash
Deb.
flow that is going to stick. Yeah.
I think we're
Wonderful.
good.
Look,
We're getting a message here from Sia. We're getting close to our limit. This was great. I
how
hope.
about let's give a round of recognition to our sponsors for
Amen.
headbands and handkerchiefs. Miss Sia, would you be so kind to maybe put up a couple of our sponsors here at one at a time? Are you able to Here we go. Look at that. We've got the Hounds of Business Community. And this is a wonderful community led by and founded by Mike A. We'll call him Mike Ashebrunner. And if you take a picture of that QR code, you can apply to join this community. And it's truly a community of small business owners worldwide that just support one another on LinkedIn and even off LinkedIn. And a lot of great friendships have come out of this community. But the best thing that Mike teaches is kindergarten skills as the leader, the founder of this networking community. It's all about reciprocation, if I'm saying that word right from the Midwest here,
We don't understand you altogether.
Oh, boy.
But I'm a Canadian, and so between you and me,
yeah.
the oot in the boat must be driving people bonkers.
Right. But we all love Mike A. He's the redneck financial guy. Does he look like a redneck in that picture, Richard?
He looks like a guy that I'd like to hang out with. That's what he looks like.
And he is. Everybody likes to hang out with him.
Yeah, no question. I like him already.
We have to get him on one of these shows because he's quite a character to talk to. But anyone that's watching the show now live or even the recorded, scan that code, reach out to Mike and say, hey, the Hounds, it sounds like a community I want to join, and mention our Headbands and Handkerchiefs live stream here and let Mike know we sent you there. So thank you for your sponsorship, Mike. Who else we got, Sia? Walking Tall. This is another great organization. They are a group of 3 guys. 2 are survivors of massive shootings. The Las Vegas shooting a couple years ago with the Jason Aldean concert, and then the 4th of July shooting in Highland Park, Illinois. And then the third partner of this organization is a doctor, and their focus is on mental health. Okay. Think about all the victims of these mass shootings. They go back to work, or sometimes same day, and just continue on with life as survivors that witnessed the horrific. Walking Tall is a movement that's going to grow big, and I'm proud to call them one of our sponsors because they want to support people that have major life events happening to them, and they're all about mental health, and we rise together by walking tall, just exactly what they are. And I love the picture, their logo here of a hand picking up a person that's on the ground. That's what we do, great. Richard. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's great.
So
it's actually great logo.
So please, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you scan Walking Tall's code there. And then we would not be here today if it wasn't for Brilliant Beam Media. Yes. Founded by Sia and led by Sia and her team. What I call them, they take the gremlins out of IT and live shows and social media. They support big companies. I know if you're a bigger company and you're looking for a team of people to handle your social media, your live shows, your podcasts, let me tell you, Sia and her team are the way to go. You talk about customer service above and beyond. Would you agree, Richard?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the one thing I've gotten to know Sia over the last few weeks as we've gotten involved in this project. And the one thing I absolutely love about her, besides the fact that she's really nice and has got a great sense of humor, is she doesn't talk in code. Like every time I'm in a conversation with someone who's a techie, like at probably about 15 seconds into the conversation, I'm gone. Like I have no idea what they're even referring to. And so when I get into tech talk, I just feel like a complete idiot. And because I have I have the most basic understanding, and they're going off and speaking a different language. And Sia explains things. It's perfect. Like she understands who I am, for example, because she makes it idiot proof, which is great, because as soon as you make it idiot proof, they invent a better idiot. But she really explains things in a common sense, logical way that makes it understandable. And if whether it has to be linking or social media, whatever it may be, I've found that even a bunch of conversations so far, I understand what she's talking about. And when something has to be done and she explains it, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
So she's really, for anybody looking for, talent in digital marketing space. I mean,
Mhm.
she's just spot on, and she understands people's needs. And they explain them in a very meaningful and understandable way.
And what I also like about Brilliant Beam Media is they're small. They're a small business, but a big heart and a team to handle the big companies.
Right.
I think sometimes the big companies they want to hire SEO experts and digital this and that and everything by hiring other big companies.
Right.
You don't get the special one-on-one touch as you do
No.
with a small company like Brilliant Beam Media. So I highly recommend them and very thankful for their sponsorship.
Give
And
yourself a hand, Sia.
yeah. And maybe we should put up the QR code, and Richard can speak again to the list there. 10
Oh,
things sellers won't tell you. Explain what that's all about, Richard.
so this is a special report that I compiled and in conjunction with Deb, and really walks people through, especially business buyers, things that a seller will not disclose to you, not because it's being fraudulent, not because they may be things that are material because they are contractually obligated to do that, but things that they're not necessarily going to speak to you about, whether related to any issues related to customers, will they continue to buy from you, whether how they're looking at the financing, their level of wiggle room on the asking price, all these components that I found over looking at thousands of businesses and decades, and the core 10 of what sellers typically do not disclose. And again, it's not because they're lying, not because they're fraudulent. They don't have to tell you these things, but they're
Mhm.
critically important. So, it's a great report. It's very in depth. It's taken a lot of examples from years of experience. I think it's about 40 pages, but some really good examples. It proves to be a terrific document for prospective business buyers. Easy to download. You just subscribe and you'll get an email. And then we have an ongoing series of 14 emails that'll go out to you every day for a couple of weeks with great helpful tips. So if you're in the market looking to buy a business, helping people buy businesses, whatever the case may be, I guarantee you will find this to be a terrific, helpful resource.
I love that. It's like a free masterclass that just comes week after week, each chapter, right?
Yeah, except right. If we were one of those full of shit gurus who are selling business programs for zero money down, we tell you this is the master class and it only costs you $5,000,
Oh
right?
my
No,
gosh.
but it's a great report. So take advantage of it. And it's going to be up for a little while. So great,
Yes.
Deb. Thank you.
And 30 years of experience in this 10 things sellers won't tell you. And you know what? We could probably add more pages to the report as time goes by, Richard.
Yes. Oh, guaranteed. So, and the 30 years, and you've got 20, so 50 between the two of us. So I like to say I'm not that smart. I'm just old. You're very smart. You're not old. So anyways, well, hopefully between the two of us, we'll be able to keep dispensing some advice
Yeah.
that people will find helpful, and, the
Yeah.
agenda to educate the world in the world of business buying and selling. It's
That's right.
something
Yeah.
we feel obligated to do. And I'm honored to do it with you, by the way, Deb.
Oh,
I
likewise.
keep telling you that, but I'll tell you again.
Yeah. And I don't want to rip on sellers not being transparent because there are many out there that are. I just want to remind everyone, if you're a buyer, you better be transparent because the underwriter will find it or I will find it.
Yeah. The
And I'm
world is
very,
easier that way.
yeah, transparency wins every time.
Yeah.
And you know what? If we all have baggage of some sort, just tell me what it is and we'll get
Yeah.
around it.
Of course, the surprises always come out. And even when we represent sellers, tell them, disclose everything. And this way, who can handle what. And if a buyer can't deal with a particular problem, better off to get them out of the way early on.
Yeah.
And Deb, I enjoy spending this time with you, and I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to next week as well.
Well, let's remind all of our listeners that Headbands and Handkerchiefs are here on all your favorite social media platform channels live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Today's topic was Business Buying Safari. Kind of where do you go? We got a whole lineup of fresh topics coming up all the way through the end of January, and we're just going to keep rocking and rolling. And until next time, Richard, anything else you want to say?
No, thank you. It was great seeing you as always, and enjoy our time together. And
Yes.
I'm sure we'll speak about 100 times between now and next week.
and support small businesses, everybody. Let's keep them alive and thriving.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Bye now.